I am so grateful to to present mm, mm, uh, Diana, and thanks to Jim Bruton, who was able to really get it together. We were able to talk, and she's going to speak for us. She's always been a spiritual seeker most of her life, but in 2010, Diana had a shared death experience when her mom passed. She was the founder and leader of the Connecticut Shoreline IANDS for 7 years, and she also had a kundalini awakening. Diana spent the majority of her adult life studying spirituality, transformative experiences, as well as near death experience and the after effects. We are so grateful to you, Diana, for speaking for us. And you share whatever it is that you need to share. And at the end, we'll have people asking questions. Okay? Thank you, Diane.
Well, first of all, I'm honored to be presented here. And thank you, Tina, for inviting me. Thank you, Jim, for giving the suggestion. And also, Bethany, thank you so much for helping me figure some things yesterday in terms of technology. Um, so, what I would like to start by saying is that in terms of relationships being affected by these experiences, again, like I said before, not only people who have near-death experiences have these issues with relationships, but also people who've had spiritually transformative experiences, such as Kundalini awakening and others as well. So that being said, I'm going to start by talking about some of the after effects that affects relationships and what to do about it. That's the key, right? What to do about it. So one thing that happens to most people, not all, is that their values change dramatically from these experiences. Um, Oftentimes, because of that, they change careers, they change even religion. Um, I could give you an example. I knew somebody who came to see me who had a very profound near death experience, who was a very wealthy person, very wealthy. And as soon as he came back, he said, well, my purpose in life is not to be wealthy. My purpose in life is to make a difference. And I have to figure how to go about that. And he was married with children. And needless to say, this caused a big problem with his wife because he ended up donating a lot of his assets, wealth, um, and that caused big friction in his marriage. Especially he left his job. He was a big CEO making a lot of money. So the problem was his wife at the time was not on board with figuring things out. Why did her husband change so much? So she basically closed the door. Another thing that happens is that oftentimes people come back from this experience experiencing love for everyone for a while, unconditional love for everyone. And that causes friction in relationships because, your spouse may not appreciate you being as loving to the other guy, the neighbor, across the street as to him. But so this causes a lot of problems and friction. Also because the person came back with a lot of questions. What did just happen to me? And because of that, again, causes problem in the marriage because this person is busy seeking out knowledge and experience, trying to talk to many different people. That could cause a problem in a marriage. the spouse could feel threatened by it, because that's the big change. Another thing that causes friction is when the person who has the experience share it with their spouse, and their spouse chooses not to believe their experience and choose to say, oh, you just had a dream, or is dismissive or ridiculing or anything like that. That causes a big problem, because someone who has such a powerful transformative experience needs to be believed, as you guys know, needs to be validated. And if in turn you have a spouse or a significant other who refuses to believe it, how are they going to integrate their experience with the person that is closest to them in their life? So that is another issue in a relationship. As a matter of fact, the rate of people who have near-death experiences is very high for divorce. I believe 75%, which is very high, needless to say. So, that's another issue. When a person stops being religious, because when they come back, they come with knowledge that is different than their religion. So if their significant other is very religious, the way the way their spouse or significant was before, that causes friction and a problem. So another reason why people have issues in relationships is because they choose not to share their experience, but they are changed. So there is not a point of reference for their significant other. What happened? Sometimes people come back feeling very depressed for being sent back, very, very depressed. And they are reluctant to, in other words, they become very depressed and isolated. On one hand, they don't want to be back, and on the other hand, they don't want to share the experience. So imagine having a spouse or a significant other who is experiencing this and not talking about it. So there are many reasons due to the after effects. Oh, another one is because people come back with many different gifts. For instance, people who become very psychic and clairvoyant. I'm going to give you an example. I met this lady. She had a very profound experience, and she had her boyfriend that she lived with. And one day he said, "Hey, honey, I'm going to go out with the guys. So just go to sleep. Don't wait for me." Well, while he was gone, she was able to see in clear detail what he was doing, who he was doing it with. She would know the color of the sheets, color of the curtains, what was going on in great detail. So what she did, she wrote a letter describing everything that she saw that he was doing. She put it at the door at the entrance of their house so he could read it before he walked in. His response was he became very angry and said that she was a witch. So that was the end of that relationship. So again, because people come back rewire in so many different ways, that their significant others do not understand what's going on. So what to do? It is helpful to go to someone who is knowledgeable of not only the experiences, but more important, the after effects, and that is knowledgeable that it takes a long time to integrate these experiences in somebody's life. And if they love their significant other, to be on board. So basically a lot of education. So it would be very helpful for somebody who's struggling with that to seek out, for instance, a coach, a therapist, a counselor, somebody who is knowledgeable of these experiences, and bring their spouse if they can, if they're open to it, because it could make a huge difference, a really big difference. In my personal case, when I had my experiences, fortunately, I mean, there was friction with some of the changes that were intense, but my significant other was knowledgeable of these experiences. Fortunately, not so much the after effects, but was knowledgeable of how profound these experiences could be. And so it's different for everyone. You know, everybody's experiences is different. But that's another loss that people have to go through. Not only the loss of not being able to stay home, how they call it, the home of all homes for some, but having to be back in a world where there is not unconditional love, that also creates problems. You know, there's a void there. And even for those who don't experience a you know, unconditional love experience of all joy and peace, that person is transformed as well, needless to say. And I have to say that there are also negative experiences, but it's a small percentage, and their lives are just as changed, except that sometimes they come back, sometimes with PTSD. And for their significant others, that's like, wow, what happened? You know, now you have symptoms. So that's something else that happened. Sometimes the spouse or significant other feels threatened that their spouse is hanging out with near-death experiences. Okay, they could feel threatened by that, or they could feel threatened that they're going about seeking out more knowledge and they're doing it on their own. And again, it's just that when the person changes, the relationship obviously gets affected. So I think the number one benefit for somebody, the solution for somebody who's having that problem, is to seek someone that is absolutely knowledgeable, somebody who is knowledgeable of the after effects and how a person could be so very changed completely. And everybody's to different degree, because all near-death experiences are not the same, but they all have common, for the most part, common denominators. So I think would be valuable to share in my case, not just so much with the shared death experience when my mom passed away. Of course, that was very transforming, but it was helpful that two of my siblings had the same experience at the same time. So that was very helpful. But in my Kundalini awakening, the transformation, and I could share that with you, because some of the people who come to the group have had Kundalini awakening, which happens a lot with people who've had near-death experiences. Okay. And the difference is when somebody has had a near-death experiences, it happens woof at once. Is very like shocking. But when somebody has had a Kundalini awakening, gradually is a little easier. And people are transformed. I could say that in my own experiences. It's like sometimes I don't recognize myself and my loved ones and friends. So that's something. And, you know, relationships not just suffer in terms of significant others, but with parents, with children. Like I've had people who tell me that the children are very upset because their mom or dad loves them as much as they love their friends. I mean, what's up with that? You know, they're defending their friends. And same with parents, you know. Oftentimes children who have near-death experiences, wow, they are completely changed. And oftentimes they don't see their parents as authority figures per se, because they have a lot of knowledge that they had when they had the near-death experience. So their relationship suffers, especially if the parent is dismissive. I had a case, which I'm going to share quickly with you. This lady, she had a very profound near-death experience when she was 11 years old. Okay. She froze to death when her family went to France. It was the coldest winter in history around in Europe. So anyway, when she came back from that experience, she was really changed. And when she shared that experience with her parents, they said, we're going to bring you to Father, whoever his name was. I couldn't remember. So the priest went to the house and said to her, I think you should never talk about this because they're going to lock you up. Okay. So she decided to shut down the experience, never talked about it for fear that, they were going to put her in a mental hospital. But years later, she remembered her experience when she was an adult. And when she remembered her experience, she was already married. Somehow things got, twisted, and her marriage started to suffer as a result. I mean, I could go on and on about the many different scenarios in which a person suffers because the relationships have suffered in so many different ways. So groups like this are amazing because you could bring your spouse, and, you could share if you have a forum where it's just about sharing, where this person could be validated next, with their spouse present, or significant other, or parent, or child, so that their families or spouses understand what's going on with their significant other. But not only that, but they could be very instrumental in the integration of these experiences in their loved ones. It could make a huge difference in their lives. So, and the opposite could happen. It could really hurt and harm people if, their spouse decides to close the door, on their spouse or significant other experiences. By the way, how long do I have so that I know? Tina?
We'll need, let's see, you can talk until 8:30 or so.
Okay. All right.
You have over an hour left.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't rush.
Okay. So one thing that I would like to share, if that's okay with everyone, because, my own experience and how relationships change, and how you lose some relationships, but then you gain other relationships. Okay. So two things happen at the same time, which happens to a lot of people. And that's why I bring it up. Not only I had a shared death experience, but I was at the same time having a kundalini awakening, okay, which had been happening a little bit right before the shared death experience. So it was difficult in terms of my relationship with my family, even though my siblings had a shared death experiences, with my family, with my friends, with my spouse, with just about everybody. I stopped being religious completely, and I just became very spiritual. I mean, I've always been a spiritual seeker, but I completely stopped being religious. And so there were issues with that as well. So
Diane, excuse me, but could you just briefly explain that those that don't know what a kundalini experience is, please?
oh yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Well, a Kundalini awakening is basically, there are many ways to explain it. You begin to open up channels. So you have access. I'm going to explain what happens. You begin to have access to other states of consciousness. At least that was for me. Higher states of consciousness. For some people also is you get a peak of access to other dimensions. But in the process, you have symptoms, side effects, whatever. You become very sensitive to light and sound. You begin to feel rushes of energy throughout your spine that go up and down. And you experience that anytime, all the time. You experience tingling here, tingling there, physically. You become, you just don't recognize yourself. You become extremely empathic sometimes, which happens to near-death experiences. Extremely empathic, where you could sometimes feel people's emotions like you are in their shoes. Also, you could experience waves, I have to say, waves of intense unconditional love for everybody that you put your attention on and off. And that could be a little jarring because, you break boundaries when you should have boundaries, and people expect that, like all of a sudden you just feel this love for these people, and you just kind of sometimes want to hold them and just take over them, just help them, and a complete stranger. Another thing that happens is you become much more sensitive to electromagnetics. Like my phone is constantly, it could be brand new and it's constantly dying. It's like, I have to charge it constantly. With computers, sometimes they don't work. Technology, like before I was trying to get in, it doesn't work. And many other things. But it creates issues around in your life, and friends don't understand that, because I've tried to share that with friends, and they're like, interesting, but then they kind of like, who knows what they think, but they create distance. But that's okay. I only share it with people who ask me questions, but sometimes if I share it and they don't understand, they just, oh, okay. But then you create new relationships of people who understand what you're going through, and they have, things in common with you. Okay, in terms of Kundalini awakening, also, for people who it just happens all of the sudden, it could be, people could experience what is called spiritual emergencies. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. And it's tough because if you don't have a point of reference, it could be very scary, because it's like all of a sudden you live in a little shocked without anybody, and is very poor, and all of a sudden you are put in this castle where you're surrounded by people. I mean, I don't know if that's a good analogy, but it's a very drastic shift, and it's uncomfortable when people start experiencing other dimensions, or peaks of other dimensions. I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but I wouldn't be surprised, because these experiences are very common with people who have near-death experiences, even for those who've had negative experiences. Oh, by the way, this is important. For those who experience negative NDEs, like I mentioned before, they could come back with post-traumatic stress disorder. But on top of that, they have after effects. just like anybody else. And their lives are transformed. But because there is stigma attached potentially, and they are afraid of sharing their experience, they're dealing with that all by themselves, and they don't share it with their significant others. They don't share it with their spouses or girlfriends or whoever. So that creates a huge problem. So again, it's very helpful to seek out someone who's knowledgeable, where they could first share it, be validated, and then bring their significant others for education. And not only for education, but to be instrumental in the integration of this experience. So as far as Kundalini awakening, there are different symptoms for everybody. Sometimes people start shaking without being able to stop. For some people, it could be that they get too spacey, extremely spacey, and they don't know what to do to get grounded. That's tough unless you have someone that could help you through the experience and help you get grounded with different techniques. So does that answer your question, Tina? Which was a good question.
Yeah, that's pretty good for now. Anybody else that wants to know more, they can do some research. Thank you, Diane.
Oh, you're welcome. And again, if anybody has any questions about it, in something
I
specific,
can always get in touch with you. That's good.
Yeah.
I know that you and Jim did a presentation for IANDS conference, one,
Yeah.
two, I don't know how many. But so how was that received?
Well, Jim, I could tell you that as far as I was concerned, we had positive feedback, very positive feedback. As a matter of fact, people had the opportunity, just like in this forum, people were able to ask questions and give feedback.
Yeah, I'd like to support what Diana's saying. There was a lot of good feedback, both in the Q&A and in emails that came after. If I may for a moment, my story with Diana was when I was realizing I had a near-death experience and found the IANDS site, I was really happy to find a page that addressed like therapeutic interests, like should you need someone to talk to. And at that time, they had a page of therapists state by state who were NDE knowledgeable, as Diana likes to put it, which is perfect. And I found Diana here in Connecticut. So I reached out to her and we had a series of sessions that I found to be very helpful, so that as we were, part of it was, becoming, again, that, 73 or whatever % statistic of NDEs who have a divorce. And so every time we got together, of course, a lot of the discussion was around that, as much as other aspects of integration, other challenges, if you will. And so she and I co-presented at the last IANDS conference with regards to what we're talking about right now, relationships, certainly marriage, but like she was saying, both, how people handle this from a professional side as well as a personal side. And of course, the spiritual just seems to be making room for itself. Thanks, Diana.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. Thank you. So the good news is that, ACISTE, which is the American Center for the Integration of Spiritually Transformative Experience, has trained coaches, religious leaders and therapists to help, has taught them how to help someone integrate their experience into their lives, into a happy life. So fortunately, they have that throughout the country. Not too many, but I think the number of people are growing, not just with therapists, but religious leaders and also with life coaches as well. But anyway, so in terms of relationship, one thing that is very helpful, bring the significant other. Always bring the significant other. And because, like in my case, I could educate the other person. I make them sensitive to what their spouse or significant other is going through. And that, on the contrary, they could be extremely helpful in their integration, which takes years. Sometimes it's a long, it's a lifetime process to achieve that, because it changes your life in so many ways. So again, this is not just for near-death experiencers, but also for people who have spiritually transformative experiences, and among them, like the Kundalini awakening. It's basically, it opens up channels. It opens up channels to different things in life. You just have a more open perspective of life. It's not that you see something that doesn't exist. It's just you see more than other people can see. You can feel it with your senses and see it with your eyes and hear it. So anyway, Jim had mentioned, and I think I want to bring that up, the idea of having like a 12, and also Bethany mentioned it to me yesterday, a 12-step program. I think it was, whose idea, Bethany or Jim?
It was Bethany. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea, although 12 steps, step by step, how to integrate somebody's life into, their experience in somebody's life. But it would be great to integrate it into their significant other's lives as well, because they're going through changes. I lost the spouse that I had before. I lost my significant other. The way they were before, it's not the same person.
Right.
It's, the person, you're not the person that I met or the person that I married. Hey, what's up with that? They need help too. Think about it. It's not just the person experiencing these changes.
It's even worse for the people. I just had to butt in. It's even maybe worse for the person who didn't have the experience. They have so much less to go on. Sorry, I just wanted to support what you're saying, because it's very fundamental.
Yes, absolutely. Because they just don't understand, they just have no idea. All they know is they lost the person that they met. They lost the person that they love, which is tough. So they both need support. That's what I would say. That would be the most beneficial thing. And also not just to go into one person, but to attend these groups is helpful, to bring their family, to bring their spouse, their daughter, whoever that is in the relationship that is having difficulties. So they could hear from others. It's not just their significant others. It's other people that are having that experience. And also the knowledge could be, for them, could be very empowering. Because most people who learn about near-death experiences, even if they didn't have one themselves, they themselves become transformed from that knowledge, from that understanding, such as losing the fear of death. And to know that we are spiritual beings having a temporary human experience. So everyone wins. So groups like this are just amazing. I mean, it's a great gift that you give to the community, Tina and Jack and Bethany for helping, and all of you. It's a great service that you provide because you could make a difference. So now, other reasons why spouses have issues is the financial aspect. That's a big one. Another person that I have in mind is this. He was I can't pronounce the word. I'm sorry. Somebody who takes care of anesthesia when somebody's getting a surgery.
Anesthesiologist.
Thank you. He was, needless to say, financially, he was very independent. He had the best house, the best cars, everything. He was married. And right after he had the experience, he said, I don't feel that financial wealth is important to me. And he began to, again, donate his wealth. That was a huge problem with his wife, and they end up getting divorced, which is very sad. And he was just too compelled to do that. It doesn't happen to everyone, but it happens to some people. Another thing that happens is a lot of people lose the fear of dying, so they become more risky in the things that they do in life because there's no fear to die. I mean, it doesn't mean that they're going to do things on purpose that are dangerous to go to the other side, but they just take more chance because there's no, everything is as it should be. Everything is as it should be. That's a knowledge that they come back with. Another thing that happens, parenting changes. So that creates resistance with their spouses. They have a different way of looking at life, so their parenting could change. I don't know if you guys have, any of you have experienced that, but that's something that happens. The parenting changes greatly. What else I would say? People just change completely. And their spouses and significant others, that they just can't take it. And again, you can't deal with it by yourself. Seek out somebody who's knowledgeable, very knowledgeable, who's sensitive, who's compassionate. Somebody.
Diana,
I'm sorry.
I'd like to add to that one of the things that bothers me from my two near-death experiences still is having to deal with people that want to talk about minutia, things that make no sense to me at all. It's like it's waste of time type of thing, judgment, but it's so bothersome to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you deal with your
a lot, all the time, because you lose interest in superficial stuff. You lose interest completely in watching violence. You lose complete interest in being, splitting people. You want to create harmony. So you don't want to be part of any of that, Tina. So that's very common. So what you're saying is, yes, absolutely. That creates problems in a relationship, especially if their significant other is the opposite. I remember this guy. I have to tell you this. After his near-death experience, whenever the family was watching a movie and there was violence, I mean, he was a little bit too extreme. He would just turn off the TV. He says, who needs that? How would anybody enjoy that? Okay. And the family's like, Dad, all right, what's going on here? So he realized that he was being annoying. So he decided okay, I just walk away. I just won't watch that. Or when people spend so much time talking about meaningless stuff, it's like, this is boring. Yes, Tina, that's very, very common. Especially when people are talking about, putting down other people, splitting. You don't want to be part of that. It doesn't help. You're not interested. That's very common. Yes. True. Thank you for sharing, Tina. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Has anyone gone through something similar?
Well, I could certainly say exactly to your and Tina's point, we saw this in social media over the past year or two. It's like it's almost like nothing brings people together like a common enemy. So it can be people railing on the vaccinated, unvaccinated, Republican, Democrat, people who don't understand social justice issues. Just take a pick. And the problem is once it starts, it just doesn't start. There are no winners. Once you start this us or them, and that's why I think that's a big change in perspective, is when you have a spiritually transformative experience, it moves from us or them to us and them. We're all in it together.
Beautiful.
David? David?
I just wanted to say I had the same thing. I mean, I've never had an NDE. I've just studied them, and I can't take violence in movies, certain drama, even watching the news. It's so negative. I can't watch the news anymore. And those are things I used to love doing. So yeah, it changes people just studying the messages that you guys bring back. And I'm grateful for that because frankly, my life is better without the violent shoot 'em up movies and without the negative news.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's very true.
Okay, we have Greg that raised his hand, and then Laurie. Greg?
Hi, there I am. Hey. Well, Tina, I was just wondering if you can clarify what you said. So you said minutia, and I didn't really understand that, but you're talking about when people use your services as a psychic, maybe to
Oh,
ask
no,
about-
no. In my everyday life, not in my business.
Oh, okay. Because I figured you'd probably get a lot of am I going to make a lot of money?
No,
next year?
once I start doing my business, it's spirit that takes over. So there's no minutia there.
Got you. And I'll say this, and I see myself as the quote spiritual, not religious, but I go to a Christian church and all that. And the thing I've been struggling a lot with, because I see that I'm taking a break from social media for this very reason, and I know I contribute to it. But my feeling is, I feel like the kind of what would Jesus do situation. I think Jesus spoke up a lot for the oppressed and spoke out a lot for those who needed it. And as much as I want to be kumbaya, love you, everybody, and all this, I almost feel like you have to call things out. And I don't mean in a I hate you in a hateful way,
No.
but I don't know. I don't know if anyone, because we're talking about how we don't like divisions once you have that experience. And I wonder what my view on that would be had I had it. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Well, I could share something
Okay.
if you're interested.
Sure.
Okay. I see your point, to have the knowledge and actually to hopefully create coherence by saying, look, this is better, how to create harmony. The best thing to do, because listen to this, the most powerful thing there is, period, is love. There's nothing more powerful than that. And I hear your point, these people is being horrible and, is evil. But the best thing to do is to actually make a point to send love to everyone, the bad guys and the good ones. Send love. And there are different specific ways that are being done through the heart math technique, that are getting together big groups of people doing the heart math technique, sending love to everyone. And also, I know, for example, there is another group who does TM, which I do, transcendental meditation, who are creating huge groups to create coherence in the world, to create love, to create peace. That's the best thing that we each one can do individually to create harmony in the world. If we each were doing that, I'm telling you, things would have to change. I mean, we can individually, we don't have to join a group or anything. In the privacy of your mind, you could have the intention to just send love to Russia, to Ukraine, to everybody, whoever. Just send love, because you doing that is not wasted. Our emotions have energy. Well, it's another topic, but I have to mention it. Our emotions have energy. Our thoughts have energy. And everything that you feel and your intentions are projected outwardly, not just nearby, but to the whole world. And people are going to feel that, because we're all connected. All of us, good and bad, we're all connected, for better or for worse. So, I see your point, Greg. But one thing that is helpful, I know this is probably a new, I don't know if you heard that, the best thing that you could do in the privacy of your mind is to actually send love, actually feel the feelings of love or peace for everyone, and you will not be wasted. You won't. So that could be very powerful. But I'm glad, you are a testimony of a person changing their lives through this knowledge.
Laurie?
Hi, Diana, and thank you and Jim for sharing this wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
I took a few notes that I wanted to bring up as you were speaking, Diana.
Sure.
You talked about PTSD and also them locking you up. Well, my near-death experience occurred from mold exposure in my home. I was very, very sick.
Mm.
I died and went to the black void. I wasn't there very long. It wasn't a very good experience. I began to get afraid. And as soon as I think I felt that real fear, I believe I was told to wake up. And when I woke up, my first two thoughts were that was real and that was not good. So I drove to the emergency room at UConn, where they hold these IANDS meeting. And I told them I died from mold exposure. They didn't believe me, so they locked me up. They literally followed me from the hospital in my car with an ambulance and the police, and I knew I had to go with them. So they shot me with a shot of Halidol and Ativan, and I got out 2.5 days later after they spoke to my primary care doctor, who actually told me I had to leave my home to get better from the mold exposure, and my allergist, who told me to go to UConn and ask for the environmental specialist. So when I got out of there, I found the environmental specialist. I got diagnosed with mold exposure from that hospital. I found Tina and the IANDS group, and I realized, yeah, something really did happen to me, and my hospital records disappeared. So I didn't know there were therapists at the time associated with IANDS, but I did take the letter from IANDS. The environmental specialist told me to go see a therapist because he said, as with any illness, you need support to get through this. So I took the letter from the IANDS website to my therapist and psychiatrist, and I explained to both of them what happened to me, and whether they believed me or not, it didn't matter to me. So, you know, I experienced things from mold and spirit. I experienced tingling from mold exposure. During this time, I moved to a worse apartment that had been completely water damaged and rebuilt, but still had mold, water dripping in the walls, and all the electric meters for the building underneath my unit. And I got sicker. And so I was sick for a long time. 2 years it took me to get away from mold, moving 4 times, and heal my body physically and emotionally. So that letter, I believe, was beneficial in explaining it to the therapists, what, you know, that we are a little bit different, that we need a little, be able to talk about this experience. And so I electronically disengaged 3 computer entry locks. I killed my computer at work. It just, you know, so electronically things were happening. And I can contribute it maybe to both things, because if I still walk under electric wires, my body tingles, you know, high tension wires. But if I talk about spirits, which I met Tina, went to her labyrinth, asked spirit to come to me, and they do now. So if I'm talking about Mother Mary or Jesus, anybody, that person, that spirit can come to me, and I understand who it is, and they're usually confirming what I'm talking about. But can I talk to this about can I talk about this to just anyone? No. Having this group and having people here who get it is just been so wonderful. So the other thing is, I didn't want to be here, but I also felt like I was so sick and dying at times, like my soul was still trying to leave my body. I would have no feeling in my legs while I was driving, and that was scary. I could actually control my legs, but my soul wasn't. It was trying to leave from the bottom up. And so that happened for about 6 months, and I felt like nothing here mattered. I kept saying, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. So, and then I would say, but I still have love in my heart. And I remember saying that over and over again. I still have love in my heart. So that, I guess, kept me going. But I did get divorced within a year of when this happened. And the reason I did that was I was running from apartment to apartment trying to find a place without mold. I am a human mold meter. I can smell it. I can stand up against a wall and tell you it's behind the wall. I'm just like a mold sniffing dog, I guess you could put it as. So, and I was so sick, I wanted to be left alone to die or get better. So there were a number of reasons that happened. And I think that it turned out that it was probably best that way. But I think the topic that you're talking about is just really useful, because relationships are changed. I went to a what do you call it? An ice cream social with my friend. And we went through the house that was donated by a woman who was a librarian in that town for 40 years. And she donated it to the Historical Society. So we went through the house and we viewed all her things. And my friend said, "Are you okay in here, Lori? It's could be moldy." I said, yeah, I'm doing okay. And then we went back and sat out on the lawn, and it was about 95 degrees out. And whoosh, all of a sudden that spirit of that woman came to me, and her name was Nellie McKnight, and I knew who it was. And she said, "I'm so happy you're enjoying the property." And I told my friend that this was happening. And she says, "I don't know if I believe you, Lori, about this spirit stuff. And we've been friends since I was 13. And I said, "Well, take a look at my body. Every hair on my body is standing up, and it's 95 degrees out." I said, "I'm not doing that to myself." So it's just wonderful that you brought up this topic, because it really is so important as far as relationships with close people, friends, and even people I don't know. I share my story because the world is getting very moldy, and no one should ever live with mold in their home. It's in Leviticus 14. It says we should not live with mold in our homes. And with all the storms we're having and all the flooding, people come to the Toxic Mold Support Group every day. And my mission, because I'm still here, and a famous NDEer, Howard Storm, has said that I have a wonderful mold ministry going on. I try to raise laws in Congress for mold in schools. And I send my message out to people, and I be careful what I share. But I also am able to usually show them a picture of me on the phone, what I looked like at the point I died and was very sick. So that for me has been very therapeutic, in that it's given me a reason to tell my story, even to complete strangers, which I find very therapeutic. So thank you so much for your message, Diane and Jim. Thank you.
Lori, thank you so much for sharing your experience. And I'm so sorry that you went through that. I think it's just awful how, someone like you who has this profound experience end up being locked up, like pathologized and put it in a hospital and give you medication that you don't need. It's such a crime, despite the fact that IANDS is there giving this message constantly, and there are movies and everything. Unfortunately, there is still a lot of ignorance lack of information, and it's just very sad what you went through. So thank you so much, and I'm so sorry you went through that.
Thank you, Laurie. Ronald? Your sound is off.
I'm sorry.
Ronald?
Who's the next
Oh,
speaker?
can you hear me?
Ronald is on. Okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Diana. Thank you, and
Hi, Ronald.
Jim and Tina and Bethany for inviting me. Diana, my question is it easier for someone that's not in a relationship or has a significant other whenever they experience a near-death experience compared to someone that's in a relationship? Now, I had my second near-death experience April 16th of 2021. Thankfully, I guess, at the time in 2020, I ended my relationship with my partner because, number one, it was toxic. We really couldn't communicate or anything. And it's just like Lori had mentioned, you know, some of the things I experienced, I'm reluctant to share with just anybody, including family members. So after my near-death experience, I talked with the counselor through employee assistance program through my job, but I didn't get nothing from it. It wasn't beneficial because basically they were just telling me the basic stuff that I already knew, like contact the insurance company, doctors, gap insurance, and all that stuff. And that was a long, drawn out, depressing process. And my anxiety kicked in and emotions took a roller coaster. But what was therapeutic for me was I was doing some of the things before this near-death experience, like walking, getting outside in nature and stuff. But still, I was reluctant to go into details about the near-death experience until I was introduced to the Hawaiian IANDS group through Sean Leffler. I was more vocal and more willing to share the details of my near-death experience through that and through these groups. And personally, I felt more of letting my walls down and not being so protected, but it was more beneficial compared to just talking to a regular licensed therapist, you know. And then it was also easier that I wasn't in a relationship because, again, with that previous relationship, I couldn't share anything with that person and I wasn't willing to, you know.
Well, Ronald, thank you so much for sharing that. So your experiences is unfortunately very common, very common. So I'm so happy that you're here. And I mean, I think that this phenomenon and the after effects should be part of the curriculum for all therapists. It should really be.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, not yet.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Jack, you're next.
Okay. Hi, Diana. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you, Jack. It's been so long.
Diana, I had the question is, how does an experiencer find a therapist who understands what the person has experienced? I think most therapists who would speak to an NDE or looking for help would not believe it, but they would try to help them somehow. But it's a shortcoming on IANDS. I've sent them information for several years, requests, etc. They really don't have much of a system set up to help NDEers. And, it takes someone like you who had a shared NDE and a kundalini. I mean, you have a comprehension of what this is all about. But for people who don't have a support system, they're out there floundering. How do they find competent therapists who understand this experience so they can guide them?
Well, Jack, thank you for the question. Again, is hit and miss. As a matter of fact, there was a study done by ACISTE regarding that topic, the experiences that people had going to a therapist who was not knowledgeable on this phenomenon and the after effect. And I presented on their conference back in 2013. And it was so sad because it was like hit and miss, like kind of 50-50. And for those who went to a therapist who was not knowledgeable, it was not just not helpful, but it was harmful. It was in many situations because the therapist was not knowledgeable and sometimes end up being, giving them a diagnosis that was not accurate. That happens a lot. So again, your question, how do you find somebody? Okay, the best source that I do know to find a therapist who's knowledgeable, who's sensitive to these experiences, is going through the ACISTE website, which is ACISTE is the acronym for the American Center for the Integration of Spiritually Transformative Experiences. I don't know how many they have so far, but at least they have some in different parts of the country. If they don't find somebody in their location, like in Connecticut, they could always call the therapist that they choose on Psychology Today, interview them. Sometimes if they end up with a therapist who's not knowledgeable, but somebody who is empathic, somebody who's willing to listen and be informed and educated could make a difference better than going to someone who is not knowledgeable. In other words, you interview them, have a session with them, ask a lot of questions before you get committed. Sometimes it may take shopping around, interview a couple of therapists, but the best thing is to, go to ACISTE, find out who has the certification, who has this knowledge. That would be the best.
Well,
I know.
okay. Well, I understand it's difficult, and I'm interested in this American Center for Integration, et cetera. I will look it up. But what's happening is, people go to the wrong people and they have bad experiences. And I kind of like this 12-step NDE program that Jim and Bethany are working up, because it provides the buddy system where you are getting support from someone who shares an experience, and they understand what you're going through, and they can provide you with help from their own experiences and dealing with it, and with their relationships. But it's not an answer for the spouse or the partner who just doesn't believe it. I mean, you talk about this and you can just see the shade going up on their eyes as they,
Yes.
they try to be kind. So I wondered if Bethany and Jim would share a little bit more about this 12-step program. What do you think?
Well, we have a hand up. Can we get Greg first, and then you can do that, please? Greg?
I'm wondering, actually, I'm okay with the question being answered for Jack first. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim and Bethany.
All right. Let me, if I can, Bethany. So I got to present, I think it was in January. And, that's when I was bringing up the subject, which is perfect for what Bethany and I have been doing, and perfect as an introduction to what Diana has said tonight, just sort of reintroduce her to the Connecticut group. And that was really about, how to focus on the integration aspect, especially with regards to relationships. And, my entire discussion was really predicated on the fact that IANDS had a couple of statistics posted that 53% of like normal people get divorced, and 70 or 78% of NDEers get divorced. And I had said to IANDS myself that if I were an organization created for a specific population and 70 something percent were seeing perhaps the most fundamental relationship in their life fall apart, I think I'd talk about it. And why did you take down the webpage with the few therapists you had? So I have had them respond to me saying some of their ISGO groups, these little pop-up groups, are starting to talk about these things. And I thought, that's good. And then I got back with, when Diana and I were preparing our presentation last year, we talked a lot about this. And, do you find the most closely matched therapy that could describe your experience, like a post-traumatic stress disorder, type of therapy? But if so, what if the best in the world therapist doesn't validate your NDE? Well, that's a problem. So maybe taking something like an AA model where you get help from within the community. Nobody's doing it for money. Nobody's doing it for fame because of the anonymous thing. But if you were to go and sit in a circle with like 40 people, 40 NDEers, and talk about how your marriage is coming apart, well, 70-something% are going to say, yeah, we've been through that. Here's how we handled those situations. Here's the questions we asked. And here's how we found our way through, one way or the other. But the other thing is 20-something% are going to say, and here's how we held it together. And like Diana said, the huge glue to that is good communication. And of course, if you have a partner who's willing to walk this path with you, well, that's already a 1 in a million, really. But good communication is absolutely key. So after I gave the presentation, talked about that, Bethany reached out to me almost like the next morning, said, hey, I like that approach. I'd like to put something together. Maybe we can co-present. So we had a few meetings, and Bethany constructed this beautiful presentation and this model, basically, with attribution to the original 12 steps and 12 traditions. But she did a really great job of matching it up to the challenges, 12, either you could say similar, sometimes individual challenges that we face, all of us, as NDEers working to integrate our experience. So having said that, Bethany, that's my introduction to you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I certainly don't want to take anything away from Diana's presentation either. But I do want to share, thank you so much, Jim. And you are really the inspiration behind thinking about the 12 steps for NDE integration. I did put in the chat the link to the ACISTE website that does have the list of therapists, the certified life and spiritual coaches, guidance, spiritual guidance counselors, mental health professionals, support and discussion group list. So there's a whole host of resources here at the ACISTE website that you can find. And Jim, I'm not sure, should I just use the presentation that we have?
You could, or at least use the first few pages. I don't want to eat up all of Diana's time, but whatever you think is best to give people a good overview of the work really you've done. I just look at it and, I made a couple of suggestions. You really did all the work.
That's
Do
very
you have an overview, Bethany?
I'll just share this page because it's a crosswalk between the NDE integration process and the 12 steps. So here we have the 12 steps. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And this is the traditional 12 steps for Alcoholics Anonymous, and which, there's literature in the IANDS group that shows that spoke to the similarity between the 12-step process as a spiritual experience and the NDE experience. But that's as far as it went. And so after Jim gave his presentation, and I thought he was the one that said, gosh, we need a 12-step process for NDEs. Just taking the language of the Alcoholics Anonymous perspective and applying it to the NDE experience is the first step would be to admit that it happened, and then to stay connected to your higher self. Then you might embrace, accept, and surrender to your truth, whatever you understand that truth to be. As Diana said earlier, everyone's experience is different. One of the steps that is included is that you conduct a deliberate review of yourself pre and post your NDE, so that this helps you. Journaling is very helpful, but this also will help you with your relationships. First, it's your relationship to yourself and surrendering that new understanding of self to source, to your higher power, to spirit, whomever, whatever the name you give to that infinite, perfect, loving energy. And then the sixth step is to conduct a comprehensive empathy walk from the eyes of all the people who love you before you had the NDE and after you had the NDE. And it's an empathy walk because you really want to understand the perspective. As Diana mentioned earlier, you changed dramatically. And so you want to have that empathy for others. Then you want to seek inner and NDE peer guidance. So come to a group, an IANDS group, a group of experiencers. Make a list of all the people in your life and commit to first acknowledging the grief, trauma you may feel. Also empathize with the grief and distress others experience as a result of your death and your life. Deepen your relationship with others. And that there's a lot of detail here with this eighth step that really is a comprehensive review of your relationships with others. Then show gratitude for the love and support others have shared to facilitate your integration. So having gratitude for that. Committing to continuous self-examination without judgment, to engage in contemplation and introspection, and keep your conversation with God or source going. The 11th step would be to deepen into a relationship with your higher self. So that is always evolving and something that NDEers really have a very close connection to. And I'm not an NDEer, so I don't have that that deep understanding like Jim does, and many of you here on the call. Oh, that's interesting, a guided journey. And then the last step is to be a support to others recovering from NDEs or other transformational experiences through the active practice of unconditional love, which I think Diana spoke of earlier when she said, you know, keep that inner dialogue going, and in the private space of your own mind, send love. That's a quick overview. Thank you.
I'd like to support that with one thing, if I may. That step number 8 that really talks about paying attention to your relationships, that certainly, you know, kind of brings it back to Diana, because one of the things we saw in a study we were reviewing was this brilliant quote, and it said that the death of a spouse may be the most traumatic thing that happens to the other spouse, but a near-death experience is the most traumatic thing that can happen to a marriage.
That's very true.
Perfect. Yeah,
Very true.
that explains it. Okay, Greg has his hand up. Greg?
Hi.
Greg, are you up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay.
Hello. You mentioned you had a shared death experience. I've heard that term before, but what does that exactly mean?
Okay, what that means is that you are experiencing, you could be at the bedside, or not necessarily at the bedside, of a loved one, or sometimes not even a loved one, who is making the transition to the other side, and you go with them. So you basically have some of their experience, which is a gift. And it's very similar to a near-death experience, except that you're very healthy and you're just standing up there.
Is it intentional typically, or does it just happen?
Oh my God, if it was intentional, imagine. That would be like, no, it was a surprise. It just happened. It was completely a surprise because in our particular case, we were absolutely living in the room with my mom in the hospital because we knew she was going to die. My sister, my brother, and I, we didn't leave except to go to the bathroom right there for days, except that family would bring us food. And we were just devastated, almost having a nervous breakdown because we were so close. And all of a sudden, from experiencing this extreme of stress, like that, in a blink of an eye, it was the other extreme, which was experiencing this profound peace, this profound joy, this profound love. And it was like, it wasn't just those emotions, but it was stepping into a different dimension. My grandma was greeting my mom. She was there waiting for my mom. And saw the light. But more than anything, more than the visual, the most important thing is that it was, oh my God, the contrast was like, whoa, you know. And the good thing, it stayed with us for the next couple of days. We were high. Like, I mean, we were thinking the nurses and the medical staff might think mom is loaded with money and we're happy she's going. But anyway, going back to the experience, it was a very profound experience. So it's basically like a near-death experience, except that you are not dying, you're not experiencing stress. And well, that's not that you're basically experiencing firsthand what your loved one is experiencing. You're experiencing what they're doing. I mean, you go with them, which is what a gift. What a gift.
So it's something you and your siblings could actually talk about after, because they all were part of it.
Yes. And we didn't know if everybody experienced it. And we're like, did you? Yes. I mean, we all experienced it, which was amazing because there were other people in the room, other family members, but we're the only ones who had the experience. So that was an amazing gift.
So that made the morning, I'm sorry, my son in the background. So that must have made mourning less of a thing.
Well, you see, that's an interesting question because at first we were high, for lack of a better word. We're like, love, joy, and I will, wonderful. But then that subsided. And then you still do the grieving. I mean, you have the understanding and the knowing that, we had the understanding that my mom was in a perfect place, but you still grieve because you feel the absence of your loved one physically in our lives. And after that, it was interesting because I would feel my mom's presence like almost all the time for a long time, almost a year. I could smell her perfume. And one night that I was very upset, it had been like after a month, I was just very sad. And all of a sudden I went to turn down the lights of my house and I physically felt her embracing me. And it was like going back to the short death experience. I experienced like this peace and this joy and love. I just felt her presence, her energy. And I felt her holding me. I'm like, whoa, so those are beautiful experiences. I mean, I wish for everyone to experience that.
Thank you. Jack, you're next.
Sorry. Okay. This is great. Now we're still talking about how to help people recover from their NDE, and I believe our support group does that for the experiencer, but not for the spouse or the partner, etc. So our group is kind of taking care of the experiencer, but it's not a solution for the marriage or the relationship. And I'm wondering if it's not too early to have Bethany and Jim, and maybe you, maybe one of our meetings will be just about some kind of a program that would help people in their recovery and try to salvage relationships. And so what do you think about that?
Jim?
Well, you, Jim, Bethany?
Well, what I could say is this, okay, because from what my own experience is so instrumental to bring the significant other into the group in the therapeutic session, whatever that is, bring them in. That's huge. If there was a couple of sessions every so often where significant others who are having some challenges and talk about it and be validated and, explain that also, you lost your spouse, your significant other, because he's no longer the same or whatever that is, to actually validate their experiences as well.
Yes.
They'll be more receptive.
Yes. Well, actually, Jim brought his wife to one or at least one, but I think two or three. I don't remember how many, Jim, to our meetings. And in some discourse we had, she sounded very positive about it, but it didn't prevail, unfortunately.
She was just curious, I feel.
I guess that's it.
So,
Okay.
well,
We only have a few more minutes, and we have like 3 other people wanting to speak. So, Jack, may I go to Laurie, please?
yeah, sure.
Hi,
Sound?
Tina. Thank
Okay.
you. I just wanted to mention that, there's another 12 step that came to mind while we're discussing this, and that is for people wanting to further their connection with spirit. And I know Tina talks a lot about this in her book, We Are Angels, but there's another woman that I came across, and my trusty notebook, her 12 steps are here. Her name is Andrea Corey. She had an NDE, and she wrote a book called Conversations with Chloe, which she believes was co-written with her daughter. And she listed the 12 steps of connecting with spirit that her daughter gave her. So this is an interesting topic. And maybe in the future, Tina, we can ask Andrea to be one of our guests as well.
That
So
would be
I
great.
like the
I'm
idea of
willing
the
to
12
talk
steps.
with her.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Laura. Kathy Trueheart.
Yes, thank you. And I'm sorry my camera's not on. I did it by accident. But thank you so much, Diana. Wonderful presentation. And it really gives me a lot to think about. I have been married for 40 years, but there are certain things that, are just hard to convey to my husband. Even after 40 years, I kind of given up. So I'm excited to ask him if he believes me that I ever had a near-death experience. I mean, I've written about it, but and I got to tell you that I think that 12-step program sounds fabulous. I love it, and I would love to be involved in it in any way that you would need any help with it. So, and I was thinking, maybe one of the times that we don't have a guest speaker, that we could spend it on the 12-step program, or
Yeah, we could make it a special meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
I'm
you,
done.
Kathy.
Complete. Blessings to you all, and thank you,
Okay,
Diana.
David,
Thank you, Kathy.
you have a quick question? Okay.
I just wanted to, this was a few topics back when I raised my hand, but I wanted to chime in on the shared death experience. Over the years in my research, I probably ran across, I don't know, 5 or 10, something like that. And I even ran across a few hospice nurses who participated in shared death experiences with their patients who were dying. And then probably the most interesting one was a guy who, him and his wife died in a car accident, and they're both rising up out of their bodies, and they stop and they had a conversation and said, well, we can't both go. Who's going to take care of the kids? So he decided to go back. And I was listening to this guy's testimony, expecting to hear about one person, and I heard about the shared death experience. So yeah, thank you for verifying that.
Wow. Thank you, David. Okay, Janice, you're next. Take your sound on. Put the sound on, please. Okay.
I'm sorry, Tina. Okay, listen, there's been so much good stuff in this meeting. I'm going to get in touch with our executive committee and Jim and you, Diana, and Kathy, etc. Perhaps we might have a meeting, an actual meeting in a restaurant or in a conference room in a library or whatever, and have a in-depth meeting about solutions and etc. And then maybe we can present it at one of the future meetings. Okay, I've said it all.
Sounds wonderful. Janice, sorry about that. Go ahead.
I'll be brief. Brief.
Thank you.
Diana, I know she was working with me as a therapist when I called the IANDS looking for somebody, and she's lovely, wonderful, and so helpful to me. Hi, Diana.
Thank you, Janice. Nice to see you.
Yes, good to see you. And we're talking about spouses. I have that problem we've been discussing with my son, so I would love some help with that. And for me, interestingly, I found out with my near-death experiences that my husband, who had been in a coma in an ICU a couple of times, he had near-death experiences. And it's just interesting how the world runs sometimes. That's really all. And I'm just so happy to see you and hear what you have to say, and everybody. Diana.
Thank
you
you so much, Janice. Thank you. And good to see you again.
Okay, so Diana, do you feel that you've shared all that you wanted to share for this evening with us?
Well, pretty much. I mean, I'm sure there's something that keeps my mind. I made some notes, and because I've done this so many times. But for the most part, I share the most important things, for sure.
Well, we want to thank you very much. We're so grateful for your presentation, and know that the video, after Bethany looks at the video, it's going to be posted into our website with all your information. So thank you for that again.
Well, thank you, Tina. It was an honor to be able to do this presentation. I hope it helped a lot of people.
So for those that want to stick around, I'm going to do a short, well, I don't know how short it is, but a meditation, a guided meditation. Jack, what's the matter, Jack?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Anyway, thank you. You've been, all right, Tina, it's we're going to have a brief meditation at your guidance.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So as I do this, anybody that just wants to go off and take a nap, feel free to do that, because as soon as I do my this meditation, I will leave. Oh, Bethany?
Yep. Thank you, Tina. I just wondered, should I stop the recording now, or do you want to record the guided meditation?
I'm okay with recording the meditation as well. Thank you. Okay. Trying to get on it. Okay. All right. So just relax, feel as comfortable as you wish. And this is called a magical color shower. The first thing to do is to become conscious of your breath. Breathe, inhale and exhale. Inhale, feel the air fill your body, and exhale. Feel your body release tension and stress. Feel the air fill your body, and feel your body release all of the energy that no longer serves you. And breathe. Our next step is to become aware of your physical body. If you need to adjust your position to be most comfortable, to do so now. Now scan your body, looking for areas of tension. Look for areas of concern, areas that cause pain. And breathe. Visualize the breath filling the problem area, and on the out breath, visualize all the tension and stress leaving your body. Starting from your crown, feel the stress and tension melt away. Your forehead, your eyebrows, your eyes, your cheeks, your jaw, your tongue, the back of your head, and your neck. Feel the tension just melt away. Over your shoulders, into your upper arms, down your past your elbows, into your forearms, past your wrists, into your hands and fingers. Feel the energy flow through your crown, down your arms and out your hands. Immediately, you should feel more relaxed, more at peace, and more in tune with yourself. Stay aware of your breathing as we continue with the physical relaxation. The front of your chest, the back of your chest, your solar plexus, and your lower back, your stomach, your groin, your hips, and upper legs. Feel the tension melt away. Over your thighs to your knees, front and back, your calf muscles, and your ankles. Feel the flow of your energy flow smoothly from your crown, encompassing your arms and torso, legs and ankles. And finally, your feet. Feel the energy flow from your toes. And while awake, aware of your breath, you should now feel complete, relaxed, and in tune with yourself. From this position, we begin the guided imagery. Imagine stepping into your shower, but no, this time the shower is magical. The water comes out of the perfect temperature. Just stand there and feel the warm water run over you. Keep your breathing relaxed so it's nice and deep and slow. The warm water has now washed away all the stress and all tension. Look down to your feet and see all of your tension and stress simply be washed away. And now the water starts to change color. Firstly, the water turns into a beautiful, vibrant red. The red water pours down and energizes you right to your core. Just stand there a moment and feel yourself infused with the beautiful, vibrant red. Now feel this color washing away all of your fears without any resistance. They are simply washed down the drain and taken away. It's that easy. Release your fears to the warm red water, and you are now free from fear. And breathe. After a moment, the water starts to change color again. And this time it becomes a brilliant shade of orange. Orange opens you to experience joy and allows you to release shame and guilt. Feel the orange wash away over you. Feel the orange color wash through you, washing away all that no longer serves, making more space for joy. And then the water becomes a bright shade of yellow. Feel the yellow water cleanse emotional pain. Realize that some things are out of your control and you can best handle them when you are calm and collected. Feel your body strengthen and become more secure. Yellow clears the mind and invigorates the digestive system. Take a nice deep breath and feel the clarity within. Now the water turns to a brilliant shade of green, balancing and restoring the physical body. Green purifies the whole system, renewing your expression of love and forgiveness. Just as you love, you are loved. Feel the green water. Open your heart to all the love you deserve. Know that you are connected to all. Then the water changes to beautiful, cooling, magical blue. This blue enhances self-expression, allowing you to speak your truth, the universal truth. Feel the blue all around you, allowing you to express yourself according to your true self. Tilt your head back so that the blue water falls right on your throat. Let the warm water relax all the muscles of your neck. Breathe in and out freely. The water changes color again. It now changes to a color containing indigo and purple. Feel it land over your crown and wash all of you. Indigo and purple stimulates your own healing power and wisdom. Indigo stimulates your third eye and intuition, and purple increases your cosmic connection. Feel the calming influence of the velvet dark colors of indigo and purple. And finally, as you breathe, the water turns to a brilliant, glowing white light. Feel it embrace you, warm and pure. This heavenly white takes away any pain and heals any hurt. It shows you the peace and joy within your own spirit. Take this moment to enjoy the white light that surrounds you, that fills you, that holds your source. Enjoy how you feel. Enjoy being yourself. Know that you are perfect. And as you bathe in the white light, know that you are now cleansed inside and out, in body, mind, and spirit. You are standing in peace and harmony with yourself and the world, both physical and spiritual. So appreciate the last bit of this magical color shower. Take a few refreshing breaths before you turn off the taps and step out of the shower. As you towel yourself dry in your imagination, feel your body. Feel that your muscles are relaxed. Feel that energy that has been revitalized. Feel that your spirits are fresh, your mind is clear, and you are looking forward to what is to come. Become conscious of your breath, and you are now been cleansed and invigorated. Wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, adjust your position, and slowly open your eyes. And welcome back. So, for those that are still here, know that you can email me and ask me for a copy of that, and I'll send it to you gladly. Thank you all for coming. Have a good night. Love and light
Thank
to
you.
all.
Good night.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Tina. That was a
Oh,
wonderful
Tina,
meditation.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank
Good
you
night.
all. Thanks, Diana.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank you. That was wonderful.